Salutations, ladies and doom. Welcome to Podcast The Storm, where socially awkward, outcast, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Good evening, everybody. We are back on schedule today.
And I am your host. Last time I want to be the brainstormer pop culture.
Apologies for the delay. I know we always do it on Sundays, or at least we try to do it on Sundays, but the day before yesterday, I woke up at 5 o'clock at night, and therefore, when it was like 7 o'clock in the morning, I wasn't tired. And of course, I thought to myself, 5 is just too late to be getting up at anyway, so I'm gonna try to stay all day through and then get some decent sleep the following night, which worked, thankfully, but also made me next to impossible to actually form a coherent sentence for most of the day. And given the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about tonight, I kind of need to be at least on my game in some fashion or other. So that's why we're doing it on Monday instead of Sunday. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. It's totally understandable, and yeah. So most of the stuff Dawn sent me. Not gonna lie.
We're cleaning house for all the stuff that happened in October because, as usual, we wait and wait and wait for important stuff to happen every week, and nothing happens. The moment we have something else to do, all the things happen. All of them. Because reasons.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna be covering 3 articles by CBR, right?
Mm-hmm.
About the Sandman. Guess who these are from?
My hopes for the coming Sandman adaptation are about to die a painful death.
All right, so this is like I said, from CBR.com. The Sandman: What Dream's Eyes Have in Common with Batman's. This is by Mira Jacobs, published October 3rd, 2021.
At first, I thought this was just going to be one of those like topical things of like they were trying to hype up the new series and they were going to make some facile comparison like CBRs want to do. Unfortunately, as we'll get into, it was not that. It was Netflix realizing they were being criticized for their aesthetic choices, and then they drafted Neil Gaiman to come out and backpedal like a motherfucker. So let's have you, Neil. How much was your artistic integrity worth, I wonder? How much did they pay you?
Right. So subheader is the Starry Eyes dream has in the Sandman comics couldn't translate to live action TV. Author Neil Gaiman explains, much like Batman's mask doesn't. Actually, I mean, again, I've seen a fan, like I think we all know about the fan film, The 24-Hour Diner, which is an egg script from Preludes and Nocturne,
Yeah.
uh, where they did. I mean, granted, they didn't have him fully, like the actor. Like I think there was setup for it, obviously, but
It was supposed to be the events of 24-Hour Diner, and it ended much like the comic, right before the events of I actually forget the name of the issue, but the issue where Dream confronts Dr. Destiny and they fight over who is the Lord of Dreams, which is very stupid on Dr. Destiny's part because Dream has been doing this since the dawn of existence. But megalomaniacal idiot is megalomaniacal idiot, so yeah. Um, but at least for a few moments in the end of 24-Hour Diner, they have a version of Dream make his way into the shot, and he doesn't say anything, but his eyes are black. They don't do the stars, mostly because I think they didn't have the budget to do the stars, but they at least make them black voids, um, and empty, like they should be. And
I
as for the they wouldn't translate to TV points, allow me to provide you some examples of somebody doing basically what they should have done with this. In Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which started in 1997, but the episode I'm thinking of, I believe, was 2002, or it actually might have been like 2000. Um, During the Dark Willow saga, they managed to make Willow's eyes dark like they should be here. In um, in the sci-fi series The Magicians from a couple years ago, the eyes of fairies in that series are very much similar to Dreams, and they managed to do that there as well. In Supernatural, the demons there are said to, for the most part, have black eyes, and they managed to do those starting all the way back in, I think, 2004, but it might have been 2007. Um, and then, of course, you've got cinematic examples like Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. But in any case, the black eye effect, at the very least, would have been fairly easy to do. And I don't think too many people would have been anal retentive about the stars because there probably would have been like a white glint to them, and that would have been fine. But even that, there have been characters who have star eyes in many different things. Off the top of my head, in this case, the only one that springs to mind is Star-Lord in Guardians 2 when he's looking, quote, at eternity, unquote. He has stars, which would be harder to do because that's a cinematic effect, but all you really would have had to have done is make sure his eyes don't look human and make them black, and it probably would have been enough for most people. And if you wanted to um, put a starry effect in them, I can't imagine it would have been that hard. So, no, I don't accept the notion that it's harder to do on TV, especially because Netflix is largely prestige TV, much like Stars or HBO, and they have basically a bottomless checkbook. So, I wrong definitively. But moving on.
Well, I was also gonna bring up, like, I've seen edits, and like this is something I agree with. Like Deadpool himself, actually, you know, like the whole white eyes thing. Like it can be done. I just don't think anyone like they always bring up this weird thing with, like, they mentioned the is like the actors can emote with white eyes and the mask on their face.
Yeah. But um with CGI and everything, it's much easier to do now.
Well, I've also like there's this fan film series, Nightwing the series on YouTube that I watched. It came out years ago, and I really liked it. And they had the actor wearing like white eye contacts as well
Hmm.
to make it to simulate that look.
Yeah. It's also worth noting that if we are taking like the Batman example, um, maybe at first you had the argument of they've never done the eye thing, but there have been several cases where they have actually done the eye thing. Like for example, in The Dark Knight, when Batman is tapping into what I'm just for simplicity's sake gonna call their version of the Batwing. His eyes are lit and glowing like that, and also in BVS, for as many problems as there are in BVS, and there are many, when Batman is in the Superman fighting power armor, his eyes are glowing like that. So even if we're taking your Batman comparison at face value, even Batman has managed to do this when it's been necessary for the story and the plot. Um, not to mention Spider-Man's eyes, at least in the MCU, are expressive, and they still manage to do the white thing. Not to mention that even before that, the only one that hasn't done the white eyes for Spider-Man so far has been the Andrew Garfield movies, and even they had them as like see-through lens type things. Not and furthermore, and this is the important bit, your comparison forgets the fact that Batman is the most vanilla of vanilla mortals. Dream of the Endless is a being of celestial power that technically sits above God in terms of scale. So wrong. And moreover, um, Batman is recognizable as Batman without the eyes. Dream, if you remove his chalk slash marble slash ivory white skin and his star eyes, looks just like a normal dude. And that makes buying him as a primordial conceptual entity much harder, especially when he otherwise wears fairly normal clothes. Um, in the comics, they were smart enough to make him look like that so that he would stand out even against, ordinary looking vanilla mortals. Um,
Moving on, or
yeah, moving along.
alright. The first look at Netflix Sandman showed stunning accuracy to the comic series of the same name that it adapts, but there were some notable differences as well.
Mm-hmm. Next.
One of these was the coloring of the lead character's eyes, and the Sandman comics author Neil Gaiman explained the change through a comparison to another classic DC character, Batman himself. Gaiman, who is an executive producer on the Netflix series, responded to a question about Dream's eyes that he received on his Tumblr. That Sandman trailer looks great, but now I'm curious, will Morpheus have his star eyes at any point in the show? Asked a fan with the username at Lily Devora Trilidar. I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Referring to the way the Sandman, called Dream Morpheus, is generally drawn with black eyes that that each have a single bright point of light or stars. Literally, just say stars.
Mm-hmm. And it's important that we understand the premise of what she's asking here. She's not saying does he have them all the time. She's just asking will they ever be referenced? And let's get into Neil's response because pain.
Right. Okay. Bugs Meany says, "Sup, my dudes? What up?"
Hello.
Okay. Sometimes, yes. Gaiman replied. Not often. Although some fans may have been disappointed that Dream's distinctive eyes haven't yet been seen on Tom Sturridge's portrayal of the character. This can be at least assure them. This can at least assure them that a version of the effect will show up at some point in the series.
I'm just wondering why you chose to make the first look not have them in it. Um because you had to know you were courting controversy with this. You had to. because if they really weren't that important to you, Neil, then you might want to have left them out when you were narrating the audiobook, which you just started narrating about a year ago. So if they truly weren't an important and distinctive part of his look, or if they were just artistic interpretation for the sake of the comic, you could have left them out um, when you were reading the audiobook. But you didn't, and you made sure to make the point that even when he's in his African aspect, when he's around Nada, he still has his star eyes. I would also throw in his chalk or marble or ivory white skin as well, because again, that is a key feature of his character's aesthetic as well, and it's what makes him look non-human, which he definitely needs to look. Um, I suppose it's better that we'll at least get them some of the time, because I'm glad there'll at least be some scenes where I'll be able to acknowledge that he looks like Dream, but I'm just wondering, why did you choose why did the advertisement team for Netflix choose to display a scene where he doesn't have them, and whose idea was it to make him not have them when he was bound? Because that's really dumb. And the skin thing too, because as I ranted many times now, the Endless are not Caucasian. They are white, as in chalk, marble, ivory, or the moon, depending on who happens to be looking at them at any given moment. Um, and you would think that if he had them ever, it would be while he was bound by Roderick Burgess and crew, because they are practicing occultists, and so they're not going to be filtering Dream in human terms because they're used to dealing with metaphysical entities for the most part. I mean, how we see Ruthven Sykes talking to Karanzan in the form of Beelzebub later on in the very first issue, and he doesn't bat an eye when a fucking demon shows up in his circle. So these are people with experience enough that they shouldn't have to filter or modify how Dream looks in their eyes. They should be able to look at him as close to his true form as it's possible for him to even exist within. Um, but that's not carried through in the Netflix adaptation. And in so doing, you made a bunch of people, myself included, have a freaking heart attack over this shit. Um, because it this story is very important to me. It kind of is instrumental in having saved my life from a severe bout of depression after I got kicked out of college. But that's another story entirely. Moving on.
Gaiman also explained the reasons behind the decision to make the change, pointing out that Batman, a comic book fixture who has seen countless adaptations, has never looked the same in live action as he does in comics and animation.
Yeah, but
Animation, he has white eyes.
okay, but the problem with that, Neil, is the white eyes of Batman are not the most distinctive feature of Batman. You can tell a person is supposed to be Batman without his eyes being the way they are.
And
Um,
honestly, it's more the silhouette with the pointed ears.
yeah, the however, because you chose to make Dream and his siblings look more human than not, it is necessary that the elements that do um, define them as non-human, like visually and conceptual, like in universe, they can look however they want, but it's important for the audience who are looking out from the outside in to at least have something resembling a consistent model, because I'm fine with the endless shape shifting when they have to, and because they are conceptual beings, their aesthetic will always be filtered through, whoever is perceiving them. But there are common elements that exist in almost every iteration of Dream, unless there's some external reason as to not. Like, I understand why his skin isn't, moon colored when he's dealing with African people, but even then, he still has his eyes in that form. And just about everywhere else, whether he's talking to, um, whether he's talking to William Shakespeare, Hobgadling, or Augustus Caesar, he has chalk stroke marble stroke ivory white skin, and stars for eyes. And given that they are literally made of the night itself in the Sandman comics, they are the children of night and time. It makes perfect sense why they are moon colored with dark star eyes, because they literally are the essence of night and the essence of existence itself taking on a recognizable human shape because they're interacting with mostly humanoid beings. I mean, we're talking about a being who is old enough to have watched Lucifer fall from heaven, according to the comic. And it was also referenced in the audiobook. So I don't want to hear I've changed my mind, Neil, because if you had changed your mind over the years, you might want to have mentioned it at any point during the process of actually having revisited the story, which you did in the Sandman Universe comics recently, and you did even more recently in the audiobook, and even prior to that, there was Sandman Overture, where Dream looked like he should have looked. So either you have sold out your integrity because Netflix offered you a bunch of money, or you've made some recent change of your mind for reasons that you haven't explained. But trying to tie Dream to Batman makes no sense because they're not the same kind of character. One of them is wearing a costume, the other one is straight up non-human. And also, as Brainstormer and I both listed a bit ago, there have been times where they've tried to adapt the eyes of similar characters properly, and they've done it. In Deadpool and Spider-Man, in at least two versions of Batman now, they've done it. So you had every opportunity to do exactly what we all mutually know you should have done, and you are choosing not to. And that is my issue. When you have the capability to do what you know you should do, and you deliberately do the opposite, that is when I have every right to be pissed off. Moving on. Unless you left to do something.
I did, and I came back. I was just waiting for you to finish. Then it kind of cut out for a sec. Could you finish like the last sentence you were on?
Um, where was the last place you heard me stop? And I'll pick up from there.
Well, just the last thing you were saying, and then it just kind of cut out in the middle, and then.
Oh yeah, the thing I said was, um, you have every ability to do what you were doing because Netflix, um, and this was confirmed when the series was ordered, is literally paying you more for the Sandman than Starz did for American Gods or Amazon did for Good Omens. So you have the resources to do basically whatever you want, and you're actively choosing not to. And when you know what you should do and you actively choose to do the opposite, that's when I feel justified in being pissed off at you. Because it tells me that fanboyism or no fanboyism, you sold out because Netflix flashed a bunch of money in your face. And that does insult me. Moving on.
Once he dons his cowl, his eyes are shown only as white spaces, which even higher budget movies don't mimic. Mostly because guys who work on those high budget movies don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Well, that, but also because you can recognize the character is Batman without necessarily always needing to do that.
Oh no, yeah, I was
Because
thinking about Superman. Sorry,
yeah, but yeah, because your aesthetic choice for the Endless are more understated and more humanoid looking, Neil, the things that define them as non-human are important to the audience and to the world to demonstrate that this is not a human being. It is literally the essence of the universe, the essence of night, wearing a human suit, or well, not a human suit, because that makes it sound like they're possessing a human body or something. But it's literally a force of nature pretending to be a humanoid for the sake of interacting with humanoid entities.
Mm.
And it makes sense because their mother is literally the night itself. So of course their eyes would have stars in them. That makes perfect sense. And of course their skin would be the color of a moon.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on.
For some reason, that live action Batman don't ever have the comics Batman's blank white eyes. I've always been disappointed that they never do, but I've always understood it. Gaiman wrote, sometimes you need the eyes to convey information.
Okay. And computer animation exists, so this is moot. And also, again, do I need to run down the times where they have had characters have those kind of eyes and they still manage to make them sympathetic or relatable in some way? The demons of Supernatural, the fairies of the magicians, Willow during the Dark Willow saga of Buffy, Mantis during the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Like this kind of aesthetic has been done, and there's no reason why you couldn't do it.
Right, and
And
also,
it, and if you personally, Neil, were disappointed, why didn't you insist? It's your baby. This is your first. This was your first big, you know, big break. Your first coming on the scene of the world stage. If Neil Gaiman says we're keeping the goddamn eyes, they would have let you keep the goddamn eyes and the skin too, probably while we're at it. But that's neither here nor there. But you chose not to, and that's what I take issue with because it makes it feel like you're selling out or that you've just lost the ability to care because it's been 30 years. And I'm sorry, but as a person who was pulled out of a severe depression by this story, thanks for that, by the way, but as someone who has this very strong connection to the material, I find it insulting because you could have done it. You had the resources and you chose to be lazy and chose to acquiesce to them saying, "We can't do this," even though you know full well they could have easily done it and it would have looked better. That's why I'm pissed off at you. In this particular instance, anyway. I have other reasons for being pissed off that we'll get into in like 5 seconds, but for now, next.
even with that understanding, the production team on The Sandman apparently made a game attempt to give Sturridge the same eyes as his comic counterpart. Gaiman concluded his posting, we did a lot of makeup, contact lens, and CGI trials, tests, and experiments starting out, and reluctantly came to the conclusion that we didn't want to lose Tom's eyes. Because when we did, we diminished the magic of his performance.
Okay, what about the skin? Because the skin wouldn't have been a big enough. Like it, because I could honestly live without the eyes as long as they were like shadowed or darkened a little bit so that they looked, vacant, non-human. But to not do the eyes and the skin just makes him look like an ordinary goth kid, and it does not work um, at all. It makes him look far too human. I, I'm less mad knowing that you tried, but like I said, I can think of at least 5 examples of ways they've done this, and the actors have still managed to give a compelling performance. So, you know, excuses or no excuses, other stories that required this less have done it better, and the actors had no problem conveying emotion through it. So either somebody wasn't trying or you just gave up. And in any case, fuck you on the behalf of the fandom. And also probably the Dream Lord, but that's neither here nor there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Next.
Um, yeah. Also, for the sake of time purposes, don't, because I feel like the later stuff we're gonna be on real tangents with. Uh,
Hmm.
I want just to ask, like, is it cool if we like save the third Salmon article for like the week after next? I know we've been waiting for to do that one. It's just again for
The third one is the Constantine one, right?
no, that's the next one. The third one's the Martian
Oh,
Man.
okay. Crap. Okay. Yeah, that works. Yeah, we can. Let's talk about the horrible mistake that they made in the casting that I was really, really hoping they wouldn't make. And I have it recorded on record that I specifically said I didn't think they were that stupid, and I hope they're not that stupid. But if they are that stupid, then I'll be upset. So don't come at me and say you would have been mad anyway. No, it's literally on tape. You can look at my or you can look at our casting response to the Sandman casting. I love things being recorded on the internet for posterity. It makes being consistent with my principles so much easier
Mm.
because I can literally demonstrate I have been consistent this whole time, huh?
So should I read the article now, or do you want to continue to like kind of be a dick?
Sorry. I don't know which one of us is on edge tonight, but Jesus Christ.
I'm just kind of tired. It's been a long day.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
because
I might be I might be more raring to go because I actually got decent sleep last night, so
I've
it
been up.
might be my fault.
I've been up since 4
Ah,
in the morning. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm starting to like turn. I'm starting to wind down.
Okay. So yeah, continue.
CBR.com. Yeah, so from CBR.com is published October 3rd, 2021, by Noah Dominguez. The Sandman, why Netflix adaptation won't use John Constantine. The Sandman creator Neil Gaiman explains John Constantine's absence from Netflix's upcoming adaptation of the acclaimed Vertigo title. In a way, I could kind of understand due to legal reasons. I could get that, but
If
I,
they were going to do that, though, they should have just left his subplot out entirely. My issue is how they choose to work around it in the exact way that I was so worried they would.
mm, Neil Gaiman has explained John Constantine's absence from Netflix's upcoming television adaptation of The Sandman. Sandman TV series will see Jenna Coleman step into the role of Lady Joanna Constantine, an ancestor of John Constantine, who originated from the Sandman comics. Coleman will also portray Joanna Constantine, Lady Joanna's modern day equivalent, and presumably another descendant of hers.
okay, see this is my problem here. Why didn't you just make Joanna immortal? Because there's a character in the comics called Mad Hetty who is an immortal, who specifically is able to hide her heart from death. Um, and she is actually involved in the Dream a Little Dream of Me issue, which is when John shows up in the comic. So if you were smart, you wouldn't fuck around with this descendant nonsense at all. You would just make Lady Joanna immortal, and then when she shows up in the modern day, you can touch on I believe it's Death High Cost of Living where they reveal why Mad Hetty is immortal. But yeah, I would much rather advise you to just make Lady Joanna immortal instead of creating um a modern descendant, which is the gender flip John Constantine. Which personally, if you did that the right way, if you did replace Mad Hetty with an immortal version of Lady Joanna, I wouldn't we wouldn't be doing this angry response because that would make total sense. Um, it's again an issue of you had a problem, and rather than find a substantive solution to it, You went right for the stupidest, most oblivious, most obnoxious solution rather than taking the 5 seconds you would have needed to fix it. And I know somebody in the room would have been smart enough to fix it, Neil, because you were in the room and you wrote some of the greatest stories of modern storytelling. So don't tell me I mean, maybe you just had a bad day, but if a schmuck like me can fix this for you in 2 seconds, it couldn't have been that hard for three professional writers, one of whom is one of the greatest writers of our generation, to come up with the solution. Unless you just don't take the extra 5 minutes to figure it out. Moving on.
Sorry, I was yawning. On Twitter, Gaiman was asked by a fan if this change was due to John Constantine's involvement in the CW's Arrowverse shows and planned involvement in HBO Max's DC lineup. Gaiman replied, stating that while the Hellblazers on other on-screen exploits certainly would have made it difficult to lock the character down for the Sandman. The plan for the Netflix series was always to have the same actor in the dual role of Joanna and Joanna Constantine.
Okay, but again, a better solution would have been, and it took me 5 seconds, make Lady Joanna immortal and replace Mad Hetty with her. Boom. It's far less stupid than doing a gender flip. Moving on.
Mhm. The right station with John is certainly circumcised right now, Gaiman wrote, but the plan to have Lady Joanna and Joanna be in the story and played by the same person was there from the start. It seemed tidier, so it worked out. Created by Alan Moore, Stefan R. Bizet, Rick Veitch, and John Toltoven. The character of John Constantine first appeared in the saga of the Swamp Thing, number 37, cover dated June 1985. John later got his own Vertigo title, John Constantine Hellblazer, which launched in January 1988 with writer Jamie Delano and artist John Ridgway at the helm.
I was gonna say, if you don't mention Jamie Delano in this, I'm blowing a gasket. But you did, so crisis averted. Moving on.
John has since made his way to the world of live action on a number of occasions. Keanu Reeves played a heavily modified version of the Hellblazer in the 2005 film Constantine. Matt Ryan went on to play a more comics accurate version of the NBC series Constantine, which premiered in 2014. While NBC's Constantine only ran for one season, Ryan's version of the title character received a second life thanks to the Arrowverse. Plans call for the character to get a live action reboot in the near future, with the HBO Max reportedly developing both a Justice League Dark series and a Constantine solo series.
And if Matt Ryan isn't involved somewhere in one of those, I will riot. Because, like, I I I allowed for Tyrion Edgerton in the audiobook, even though that was one of those cases of Matt Ryan is right there, what the hell are you doing? Tyrion didn't do a terrible job. Still would have preferred Matt Ryan, because the man deserves to play that character basically until he decides he doesn't want to anymore, and not a moment before. But Tyrion Edgerton was a good choice for a version of John, and I don't mind it. But my main issue here, as is always the case, is I do not trust Jenna Coleman's ability to act. While she's better at like quasi Victorian stuff, because the couple of times on Doctor Who where she played a Victorian like character, um, were her best performances. She doesn't have the zany badass aspect that is required to play any version of John, much less a gender flipped one. Um, which again, my solution, just make Lady Joanna immortal and leave out Mad Hetty. but I guess they wanted to dive right into the piranha's nest of fan outrage, because the first and most fervent time I defended you, Neil and company, was when you released the casting for Lady Joanna. I insisted that Lady Joanna was a character from the comic and that they couldn't possibly be that stupid. Either they were going to reveal the casting for John later and punk everybody, or, like I said, the proper solution in my mind is just trade out Mad Hetty for Lady Joanna and make her immortal. Um, but you didn't do either of these incredibly easy and straightforward things. You instead did confirm for everyone that was hating on you a couple months ago, which I defended for a week straight, by the way. And again, it is on camera if anyone wants to see it. It is in my guest appearances and crossover playlist on my channel. Um, Even though I defended you for a week straight, you actually did do the stupid thing. So now I get to be pissed off with you because I gave you the benefit of the doubt and you still all but kicked me in the face. Next.
All right. First season of Netflix's Sandman series will adapt those comics for a story arc, Preludes and Nocturnes. John Constantine played a significant role in this arc. Appearing in March 1989, Sandman #3, Dream a Little Dream of Me, in order to help Dream of the endless locate his missing sand pouch. The first of 3 artifacts Dream must retrieve in order to return to his full power.
Yeah. And now I'm either going to have to skip that episode when it gets to Netflix, or I'm going to have to grit my teeth the entire way through because I don't trust Jenna Coleman's ability to act as a zany character like John. She can play a courtly, pompous character like Joanna. That I can buy, but um, playing a version of John Constantine, especially a controversially gender flipped one, is not in her acting repertoire. Just isn't there. She doesn't have the personality. And I hope I'm wrong, but the more sensible solution would just be leave descendants of Joanna out entirely, swap out Mad Hetty, who to the best of my knowledge they're not using in the series anyway, and make Lady Joanna the one who's immortal. Next.
Lady Joanna Constantine came into the picture a bit later, created by Gaiman and Michael Zulli. The character first appeared in Sandman #13, Men of Good Fortune, which was published in February 1990 as part of the title's second story arc, The Doll's House. Lady Joanna was the previous owner of Fawny Rig, the manor that eventually came into the possession of one Roderick Burgess.
Yeah.
Burgess used the house as the base of operations for the Order of Ancient Mysteries, with the occult group going on to imprison Dream for several decades, as told in Sandman #1.
Yeah, I hope they reference that too at some point, like, because from what I remember, it was partly Dream's help that allowed her to purchase that house in the comics. So it's going to be extremely ironic when Dream it it finds himself stuck in Fawny Rig again and being like, wait, isn't this the house I helped Lady Joanna find for herself? Because it's one of those ironies of the fact that Dream is not just immortal but pre-mortal. That he has basically had dealings with the Constantine family for a millennia, and even in Men of Good Fortune, which is one of my favorite storylines, one of my favorite issues, the one that introduces Hob Gadling, um, they reference that Hob Gadling, Dream's friend and um, the horse that he and his sister are placing bets on, acknowledged that he ran into a Jack Constantine back in Elizabethan era, and he was a cunning man. So the Constantine family has had the worst luck for basically forever, and apparently there's been a family legacy of magic and the occult since forever. Next.
In addition of Jenna Coleman as both Joanna and Joanna Constantine, Netflix's The Sandman has Tom Sturridge as Dream, Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer, Vivian Akamimpong as Lucian, Boyd Holbrook as the Corinthian, Kirby Howell Baptiste as Death, Mason Alexander Park as Desire, and Charles Dance as Roger Bird, among many others. The series does not have a premiere date, though it is expected to arrive sometime in 2022.
If I had my druthers, I'd say wait until June 10th of 2022, because June 10th was the day in the comic that Dream was bound on. So that would be thematically appropriate if he was released on the same day that he was bound in the comic. Just saying, Netflix, take that as a freebie. Set the release date in June, and then make the obvious joke. Like, I just want this series to be good. I really do. It's my favorite comic ever written. Like I said, it kind of saved me from severe depression once, and I love it dearly. So please don't fuck it up any more than you already have. Because I'm already annoyed with it, and I don't like being annoyed with something I love. Next.
Alright, moving on from Sandman stuff to something Dalton sent me. Again, this is more for Dalton.
Yeah.
It's from latestly.com. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness plot leaked on Reddit. Rumored plotline reveals how it connects to WandaVision. Okay, for one thing, and Dalton and I talked about this, is I wasn't too sure about covering this simply because it is rumored.
Mm-hmm. My main thing is it came from a source that has gotten things right before, and it's worth noting that as soon as this was leaked, Marvel pushed back the release date of Doctor Strange by 2 months because it initially was going to come out in March, in I believe late March. It was like March 22nd or something, and it is now set for a May release date. And the reasons given were problems in the script and concept phase, and massive reshoots. So I'm wondering if maybe this was the initial plot line, and people's reaction. It got leaked. People reacted to it like, "What the hell is this bad fan fiction?" And everyone went, "Oh shit! They're reacting to our proposed story as though it's bad fan fiction. We better fix it." Which, good on you for at least realizing you fucked up, but this is bad. This is really bad. Like, this is one of the worst plot threads I've ever heard of in the MCU, if it happens to have been accurate at one point. So,
Alright.
yeah, next.
Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Elizabeth Olsen, and Benedict Wong, and is directed by Sam Raimi, with the film scheduled to release on March 25th, 2022.
And again, that has been altered to sometime in May. I don't remember the release date off the top of my head.
This was written by Roy Rajput, October, and published October 6th, 2021. It's really shocking how little we know about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, with its release just being a few months away, although that might change if this leak turns out to be correct. Recently, a user on Reddit who goes by the name of My Time to Shine Hello has been going around the subreddit Marvel Studios spoilers and dropping plot points for Spider-Man No Way Home. To everyone's surprise, everything he said about the trailer of Spider-Man No Way Home turns out turned out to be correct. So what does he do next? Well, he drops the entire plot for Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. For Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness to Thor: Love and Thunder, Disney India announces. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Now, of
Hmm.
course, we have to take this info with a grain of salt, but we can't deny that he has had an amazing track record with MCU leaks.
And that is what worries me, because this is some of the most contrived bad fan fiction I've ever heard. And if it's what they actually had planned, then I will burn this world to a crisp.
No, you won't.
Let me have my misanthropic moments, goddammit.
No.
Fair play.
Uh,
Moving on.
my time's shine again. Hello. That's what he wrote, apparently. So for Doctor Weird 2, Wanda is the main villain. Shuma only has a small role as Demon Wanda summoned to bring Chavez to her. The Darkhold is the reason it's corrupting Wanda's mind with the idea of doing whatever it takes to get her kids back. It makes her think they need help and are in danger somewhere in the multiverse. Wanda is trying to reach them, but can only use astral protection to travel the multiverse, and she needs it to make it so her whole body can go through to get to her kids. Solution is Chavez, who can create portals. Wanda uses the Darkhold to summon demons to bring Chavez to her, but the demons destroy everything in their way, including Chavez's reality.
Okay, so problem number one, you do not, under any circumstances, use the Shumagorath as a one-off disposable demon. Not on your life. The Shumagorath is the being that created the Marvel Cancerverse and also might be responsible for the Marvel Zombies universe, depending on what you believe about the canonicity of that. And what's more, when he was first introduced, it was him emerging onto the physical plane that ended up killing the Ancient One. The Ancient One had to sacrifice himself so that Shimagorath didn't take over the mainline Marvel Universe. Not to mention, you've been Easter egging in Shimagorath in What If at least 4 times. So do not, under any circumstances, waste Shimagorath. You've already pissed me off by not utilizing the Weller in Darkness to his fullest potential, but you do not, under any circumstances, get to use Shimagorath that way. Not once, not ever. Secondly, I'm worried with how much this is turning into a softcore pilot for America Chavez instead of a Doctor Strange sequel. Um, and the stuff with the only thing about this plot thread so far that makes sense is Wanda Wanda's mind being warped by the Darkhold, because as I said when we were talking about alternate universe heart losing Strange in as a possibility in No Way Home, that article was a couple weeks ago. I want to say the same episode where we reviewed the Sandman trailer. Um, when we were addressing that, though, I mentioned that the Darkhold is basically the One Ring in book form, as the if the One Ring were a set of encyclopedias, I think is how I put it. So yeah, no one should be in the same room with that thing alone for more than 5 seconds. certainly not someone who's already broken with grief, and certainly not Wanda, because she already has ties with Chthon, because Chthon in the comics is both the writer of the Darkhold and the source of Wanda's chaos magic. Um, but yeah, that's the only thing about this plot synopsis that makes any sense or would in any way be satisfying, is the Darkhold being what the Darkhold always is, which is basically evil incarnate in book form. Next.
Right, okay. Chavez gets to MCU and seek help to get to Strange, who's attending Palmer's wedding at the time, and then Shuma gets there and is attacking New York. Strange beats Shuma and talks to Chavez. After that, Strange goes to Wanda.
Again, why is America Chavez anything more than a glorified cameo here? Stop making this Doctor Strange sequel a pilot for America Chavez. And again, stop lampshading the most Lovecraftian creature Marvel's mythos has at its disposal. You're gonna want to use that later, trust me, if you know what the fuck you're doing. And we're are we and seriously, we're number one, I don't see any reason why Christine should even be involved in this movie. The, Strange and Christine parted ways perfectly well in Doctor Strange 1, and it was fine. So going to Christine's wedding strikes me as a really, really stupid waste of time here. Especially considering how closely this is supposed to tie in with the events of Spider-Man No Way Home. In my opinion, what you should do is have Wanda reveal herself as fake Strange in No Way Home at the end, have her maniacally laugh to the camera, cut to black, Doctor Strange and the Scarlet Witch will return in Multiverse of Madness, and then immediately, I believe the term is in media res, or in media res, when Doctor Strange 2 starts. That makes far more sense than any of this convoluted bullshit. Next.
Yeah, alright, uh, uh, yeah. After Strange goes to Wanda and they have a fight, Strange trying to bring her back to her senses, but there's no use. Wanda gets to Carmitage and blows the place up. Looking for Chavez, Strange Chavez run into other realities. Escaping Wanda, they go through a lot of crazy places till they get to a Mordo variant who's the master of the mystic arts in his universe. He tricks them and brings them to the Illuminati, a police-keeping force of the multiverse led by Charles Xavier. They put Strange and Chavez in prison. To get them, Wanda takes over the body of this universe's Wanda, who's just a normal housewife with her kids. I mean, in a way, that sounds interesting, but I don't think the execution would really work.
It doesn't, okay. If this were a Fantastic Four movie, and this was Reed Richards instead of Doctor Strange, that could almost work um, because the Fantastic Four have closer ties with the X-Men, and in the comics, Reed Richards is the one who discovers the multiverse first. Um, so if this were something that started Fantastic Four, that I could almost give you. But nothing about this strikes me as Lovecraftian or or John Carpenterian or even Sam Raimi-ish. It sounds like bad fan fiction, and I hope to God that is all it is. Because I can live with an America Chavez cameo. I can live with her being involved because she is a magic based character, so fine. But making the entire plot basically about her as the MacGuffin makes no sense. It having almost nothing to do with No Way Home makes no sense. And the only thing Doctor Strange-ish we've gotten so far is Shuma-Gorath, who has been reduced to Grunt Demon number 1474. Um, and that's ludicrous given how important he's been to What If so far, and the fact that he's ended multiple universes in the comics, and he was the one that killed the Ancient One in the comics. So either just don't use Shuma-Gorath yet, save him for the third one, or leave him alone. If you're not going to do him right, then don't do him at all. Because I don't want him to turn into what you turned the Dweller in Darkness into. A being who, in the comics, by the way, has survived the death of the previous universe, or actually the previous multiverse, and found himself in the mainline universe because plot thread. And also was a master of Nightmare, who we still haven't seen yet. So why are we focusing more on the multiverse aspect of the multiverse madness than the Lovecraft or John Carpenter aspects of the multiverse madness? Especially when you consider that we have Sam Raimi, whose claim to fame is the Evil Dead franchise, which is basically G-rated H.P. Lovecraft. When you get right down to it, because again, as I've ranted before, this movie should be the easiest movie for you to do, Marvel, because you've got a title that evokes H.P. Lovecraft and John Carpenter, a director who's most famous for Evil Dead and Darkman, a writer who is famous for one of the more emotional episodes of Rick and Morty, the composer who gave us 90% of Tim Burton's soundtracks and theme songs, and the deeper lore of the Marvel Universe mystical side at your disposal to use, not to mention that you have to set up multiple pantheons of deities for Gore the God Butcher in Thor 4 anyway, and you're trying to set up Black Knight now and Blade, which are in the darker, more mystical side of the Marvel Universe, and you're trying to set up Black Knight. So if you want to play within the context of the mystical side of the Marvel Universe, there's plenty of room for you to use with the mystical side of the Marvel Universe. Tie in Blade, tie in Moon Knight, tie in Black Knight, and like go either very, very Lovecraftian as per the In the Acts of Madness title, or since you have Black Knight and Blade to set up and Moon Knight, go the Gothic God route, and maybe set up Werewolf by Night, Nina Price, um, Into the Living Mummy. Like, if you want to go the Gothic, mystical, supernatural route of the Marvel Universe, you can do that within this movie, and it's the perfect place to do it. What's not the perfect thing to set up in this movie is the X-Men. Because despite the fact that Wanda is technically a mutant, or enhanced within the context of the MCU, her powers are basically just innate magic, which means that regardless of her mutant abilities, she needs to learn the skill of magic in order to use them properly, as we saw with Agatha teaching her in WandaVision. And it was basically the only good episode of that show was when Agatha was taking Wanda to witch school, which eventually, of course, bit her in the ass, but you know, what you gonna do? We gotta beat the villains at the end of the day. So yeah, so much of this is nonsensical and stupid because it has almost nothing to do with what the premise of this story should be, and it basically lampshades your main character because you've mentioned America Chavez more times in this movie than you have mentioned Doctor Strange, and it's a Doctor Strange movie. Moving on.
Yep. She used her body to kill some of the Illuminati, get Chavez out, but before she could do that, Xavier enters her mind, tries to free her mind from MCU Wanda. She's also trying to reach MCU Wanda and help her come to her senses. When Wanda finally gets to her kids, she realizes they were never in any danger and were living happily with the other Wanda in that universe on a farm. The kids want their real mother back and fear this Wanda. This breaks Wanda and she disappears, but not before she does the same thing she did in WandaVision, but this time to the whole multiverse. Strange Chavez get back to the MCU, but the multiverse is more broken than ever. I'm guessing that Wanda will get her kids to the MCU and they'll be older.
Okay, so why is this scene between Wanda and Xavier instead of between Wanda and Strange? Given that this is a Doctor Strange movie, I don't mind seeing Charles Xavier again. In fact, if it's Patrick Stewart, then all the more power to it. But it shouldn't be in this movie because that's the scientific aspect of the multiverse, not the mystical side of the multiverse, for one. And for another, if you want to have Wanda have um, this big emotional come to the Vishanti moment, come to Jesus moment, except it's in the Marvel universe, so come to the Vishanti moment. Um, then it should be Doctor Strange, who is a sorcerer, and B, a doctor who specialized in neurological trauma, um, who gets in her mind and makes her have this moment. Especially when you consider that one of the best moments outside of the comics for Doctor Strange in the entire history of him as a character was in the Spider-Man the Animated Series episode Doctor Strange, where he helps Mary Jane Watson um, deal with the grief of losing her father as a child, which Mordo in that universe had used to brainwash her and make her join a violent mystical cult. Um, and yet it took Doctor Strange all of 5 seconds to get in her mind, show her, sympathy and basically be her therapist and make her, ease up. So if it had been anyone, it damn well should have been Doctor Strange. In both his position as a sorcerer and as a doctor, it makes no sense for it to be anyone else. And it certainly doesn't make sense to stop a Doctor Strange movie dead and give one of the best um, action scenes and emotional moments to Professor Charles Xavier. No disrespect to Charles Xavier, but wait until we introduce the X-Men, if you please, if you're going to do this. Don't stop a Doctor Strange movie dead to be an X-Men movie for 5 seconds. Moving on.
Mm-hmm. What leads me to believe this plot leak as credible is that recently we've gotten previous leaks of Wanda Maximoff fighting Professor X in casual clothes. If true, it looks like the movie is going to be one of the darkest MCU films ever. Meh.
No, Dark would have been touching on the Lovecraftian aspects of the Marvel Universe. Dark would be touching on the gothic supernatural parts of the Marvel Universe. Dark would be, you know, Wanda and Strange both dealing with their respective traumas. This is badly written multiversial fan fiction that lampshades Doctor Strange in a Doctor Strange movie, centers America Chavez for no good reason, and basically gives Doctor Strange all but nothing to do. So I hope to God that this is either not the case, or that the reason they pushed back Doctor Strange 2 those extra couple of months was to reshoot basically the entire thing to make an actual, MCU Lovecraft movie, as the title and the writer and the composer and the co-writer all would imply. And also the fact that, you know, because the Marvel universe is an interconnected universe, we have to set up Blade, Black Knight, and Moon Knight anyway. So why not use the mystical character or the primary mystical character to set up the rest of the mystical universe? Not to mention the entire fan base wants to do something with Mephisto and Ghost Rider at some point, and he ties into Doctor Strange too. So why not actually deliver on the thing you're promising rather than using Doctor Strange as an also-ran in his own movie and giving all of his screen time to America Chavez for no goddamn reason. Moving on.
Alright, so moving on to the next thing, because that was the end of the article. Again, this is something Dawn sent me. And this is actually it's something, but it is something I usually like talking about. When I say like. Granted, this was kind of a coin flip because Dawn sent me two articles on this. Hold on, let me pull it up. It's from ScreenRant.com. Superman writer thinks Zack Snyder's version was too relatable. It's by Liam McGuire, published October 13th, 2021. Okay, so like I said, this was kind of a toss-up with the other articles Dolan sent me, which is talking about John Kent in the comics, the son of Clark Kent, aka Superman, who is the new Superman, so to speak. Kind of not, I don't know, like timeline in the comics right now is really weird and confusing.
Yeah. Looks like it's about time for another reboot again.
In 10 years. Again.
Oh boy.
Who is bisexual, and I didn't want to at first I was going to cover it, but then I thought I don't really care.
And yeah, there's not much to say either, like apart from the the character is an unlikable prick, so gay or not gay, he's not going to wind up in a stable relationship.
Right. And Dalton and I had a couple hours of discussion about this prior. And I'll give my thoughts on it briefly. Is, well, one, what Dalton said, but also like my main issue with it is not because he's bisexual, and a lot of people, I don't know why, confused that it was Clark Kent Superman.
Because people don't pay attention.
Yeah. Two, again, my issue is more so the character itself.
Yeah, because he's an asshole and an authoritarian.
Right.
Which we've already covered once in one article.
Yeah. 3. And again, like it's honestly just a tacked on thing with this character because like the character hasn't existed for long, and so it wasn't properly built up or anything. Like honestly, I would have been fine with it if we just taken time to get to know this character and then they reveal that he's bisexual. You know.
And here's another aspect to this. As the gay guy in this particular live stream, what annoys me about this when they do this is they never use it as an excuse to tell stories where the sexuality actually is relevant to anything. They don't tell stories about John Kent looking for someone to love him. They don't tell stories about him realizing kind of the error of his authoritarian ways and having to redeem himself so that someone will love him. They don't tell stories about his aggressive tendencies actually like making someone imagine if John was with somebody and because of his aggressive tendencies and of course his superpowers, he accidentally hurt someone that he loved severely. Like maybe he puts somebody that he's with in a coma because he gets mad and aggressive at them one night. And then he has to go through a redemption arc for that. But no, none of that. The sexuality is never actually going to be addressed in a story, and it's never actually going to tie into his actual character. He's just gayness the character now, like Iceman. They didn't tell stories about what if Bobby Drake realized he also preferred guys and had to deal with that. They changed Bobby Drake as a character entirely and made him basically the avatar for Big Gay Al from South Park.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on.
Yeah. Action Comics writer Philip Kennedy Johnson said he believes that Superman and Zack Snyder's Man of Steel was too relatable. I had to disagree with that entirely, simply because that character was a moping piece of shit.
Yeah, but my issue with this and what made me send it to Brainstormer at all was, what must that say about the way Mr. Kennedy views the world if a mopey murderous sociopath
I
wearing a Superman suit
why is he a social?
um
I don't know if he was.
well, they certainly didn't take any time to establish who or what he cared about beyond Lois and I guess his mom. Um like he didn't ever help people out of the goodness of his heart, really, and when he did, he complained about it. And Martha, in all her wisdom, went all, "You don't have to do anything for the world. You don't owe this world a thing."
That was BVS. I think we're talking Man of Steel here.
Right, but even so, it's like there is no indication that this Clark Kent actually enjoys helping people. And there are very few scenes, if any, that display human emotions. And usually when young Clark displays human emotions, you get John Kent going, "Maybe you should have let everyone die." Um, because that's a that's an important and useful message for a being that has literally all the physical powers one can imagine having, that could basically be a totalitarian dictator in like 5 seconds if he felt like it.
Moving on.
Yeah, sorry.
Right. No, you pretty much stepped on my feet there.
Sorry.
No, you're not. The, the Man of Steel is the last solo Superman movie, and current Action Comics writer Philip Kennedy Johnson explains why he enjoys Christopher Reeve's version of the hero more than Henry Cavill's starring flick. The Henry Cavill starring flick. And again, or I've said this so many times, I don't think it's Henry Cavill's fault, because he's actually a great actor. And honestly, he would have been an amazing Superman in my opinion, had he been given the right material.
No. And what's more, when he's off screen and off script, he actually is fairly charming, so he can pull off the all shucksian Superman kind of thing, the mom baseball apple pie thing, if he was given that to work with, but he wasn't.
Yeah, it honestly sucks.
Hmm.
Um, and here's the thing, like, and Don and I had a brief discussion about this article like last week when we were talking about it.
Hmm.
Well, I'll get into it as we go on. It's the reason why I wanted to cover this article is not exactly the reason people think it is.
Hmm.
I mean, it is, but also isn't. Like, I have multiple reasons why I want to cover this article.
Hmm.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So, in a panel at New York Comic Con, Johnson, who's currently writing Action Comics, the most recent Kal-El title at DC Comics, said he prefers the Superman a little less relatable than the version who appeared in Zack Snyder's 2013 film. And that's where I knew I wanted to cover this article. Simply on
Yeah.
that description is stating Superman is not relatable at all.
Or implying that the Zack Snyder version is somehow more relatable than the Christopher Reeve version.
or just classic Superman in general. Like if we're talking comics, since he is a comics writer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, granted, Golden Age, but every Golden Age hero had a kind of dissonance with him, simply for
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
that's just par for the course. I'm not.
but yeah, the Golden Age is what the Golden Age is, whatever. But
Yeah. Also, a bit of the Silver Age.
yeah, but you were saying I don't want to. Sorry, I overstepped last time. I don't want
Right.
to.
My point being is, and again, I might go on a semi rant here. Is that most people don't, and like this might be conjecture a bit, but a lot of people, especially like people who write these comics and stories, like for movies and TV and stuff today, don't get Superman. I'm not exactly saying I get Superman. I just have an understanding of the character since I've worked on, like I've done homages to the character and tackled different like angles of the character. I've grown up watching a
Yeah.
lot of stuff with the character and stuff. You know, it's just like I've had Superman in my life practically my whole life. Like the first comic I ever read was a Superman comic. So
And he may not be willing to say that he gets Superman better than modern day writers do, but I've seen and or helped him work on a lot of his homages to the character, and I can say with a pretty thin margin for reasonable doubt that he gets Superman better than these characters.
I more
Because,
or less, like dude, I more or less didn't want to say it to seem like I was a gatekeeping fanboy.
right, but you know, I am the sort of outside looking in perspective, and from what I have seen, I will go on record as saying I think he understands Superman better than most people do. Case in point, I, for most of my life, haven't enjoyed Superman. Um, and I have many, many reasons for that, but that's neither here nor there. But in my conversation with Brainstormer, I have at least garnered a greater respect for the character than I previously had. Um,
Right. Well, personally, and I've seen many people talk about this because I feel like a lot of people are starting now to realize Superman is more relatable character than Batman.
mm,
Um, you know, because Clark Kent, he's a working man. He's a guy who grew up on a farm, middle class. He's a reporter. You know, he does regular people stuff. Bruce Wayne, billionaire playboy vigilante.
who spends his entire life grieving about the loss of his parents when he was like 11 or 12 or whatever.
I thought it was 9.
They change it at the drop of a hat depending on which origin story they're going with. I always like average it around 10.
Yeah, but yeah, and Superman is well, Clark is an idealist. He is a guy who believes in the good of humanity again. And then, like one of my favorite stories, movies that I've seen of Superman is Superman versus the Elite, and where like he is constantly like being targeted as being like his morals, his code, his beliefs are called to be outdated, which kind of is a lot like
Yeah.
today.
You're naive, you're just childish, you don't understand how gray the world is, blah 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 blah. Yeah.
See, that's the thing is like Clark understands that, like he gets that, like, and he does play in that grayness a bit, but not in like you know kill them all and let God sort them out. He's not about that. He believes in a second chance. He believes in fairness. He believes in treating your fellow man with respect. Common human decency. And it's sad that in on a planet full of humans, it takes an alien to teach us humanity.
Well, it's worth noting that the reason why he has to be so strict with himself is because on a planet like Earth, everyone and everything is fragile. So, when you can barely twitch a muscle without, causing an earthquake, you kind of you have to hold yourself to a bit of a higher standard um than most people. That's why fundamentally, a lot of people, and I don't mean to jump on your toes again here if I am, but um a lot of people think that Superman is more scary than Batman because if Superman ever snapped, he could do a lot more damage. But when you get down to it, um Batman is far darker as a character than Superman. Because despite being one of the physically least powerful characters, Batman somewhere on a file has a means to beat every single Justice League member up to and including Superman. And what's more, if we're comparing like to like, let's postulate an alternate universe where Bruce Wayne had Clark Kent's powers. Do you think that the world would go on as free as it is? Or do you think Bruce Wayne in all of his paranoid glory would turn the world into a Orwellian totalitarian state? My money is on the Orwellian totalitarian state, and I can say that because I am a very paranoid intellectual person, and I know about planning contingencies. It's one of the ways that I manage to make sure that I don't die of anxiety attacks every 5 minutes. I make plans and I scheme. And as somebody who has that sort of shadow in their head, um, I can tell you that if I had my will to, you know, um, accomplish all the contingencies that I had, there would be no such thing as human freedom anymore because it would probably go very totalitarian very quickly. But that's why it's good for the world that neither I nor Batman has the kind of power necessary to accomplish everything we want all the time. Um, and likewise, it's remarkably restrained on Clark's part, knowing that he does have that kind of power, to for the most part not even think about doing it
Mm-hmm.
unless he's pushed against the wall, like in the case of Superman versus the Elite. And even then, he only goes as far as he goes to demonstrate exactly why it would be a very, very bad idea.
Right. Yeah, this is a good movie.
Yeah, and the comic is awesome too. But
I
to be
haven't read.
fair, the comic is extreme. The comic is extremely, or the movie is extremely accurate to the comic. They really didn't change all that much.
Mm, um, I had something. I had something. No, it'll come back to me at some point. Okay, so moving on. 2013's Man of Steel is one of the most divisive superhero movies to come out in recent memory. This film has a mix of detractors and loyal faithfuls who hold it in high regard. The blockbuster was directed by Zack Snyder and starred Henry Cavill as Superman, and focused on the character's origin and becoming Superman.
And therein lied the exact problem, because for better or worse, and in this case, most definitely worse, Zack Snyder inserts his interpretation of Randian objectivism into every movie he makes. The problem is um, Rand's approach to human nature, while rational in her original formation of it, um, is very much often used as a means to justify um, vicious and even in some cases sadistic nihilism. And that was my moment when I realized we had to talk about this, because my issue with the notion of Man of Steel Superman being too relatable, quote unquote, is what that must therefore say by implication about the person who wrote it. Because if you genuinely consider the bastardized Randian bullshit version of Superman that we see in Man of Steel, or to use another example of a similar kind of character archetype, saying that saying that Zack Snyder's Superman is more relatable than Christopher Reeve's Superman is almost like saying Homelander from The Boys is more relatable than Superman, which suggests to me that you have a very, very nihilistic and dismissive view of humans in general, but also probably the world. Um, because you think somebody who begrudges having to help people is more relatable than someone who is optimistic. And while on some level I can agree with that because I am an asshole, I acknowledge that that makes me an asshole, do you see? And I don't begrudge someone like Brainstormer who genuinely is the optimistic cinnamon roll for the most part, despite everything he has been through in his life. Um, I don't always fully understand it, and there are times when it makes me kind of want to roll my eyes. But in all honesty, it's better for the world if there are more optimists than assholes. I reserve my right to be an asshole because sometimes the asshole is necessary. But when push comes to shove, even I will admit it's better, generally, to be the optimist who actually has principles than the asshole who finds human beings annoying and wants to kill them all at least once a day. For what I hope is obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm. Moving on.
Yeah.
All right. The film retold Kal-El's iconic origins from being sent to Earth as a baby following the destruction of Krypton to coming to his own with his extraordinary powers to becoming the world's greatest hero. The film received mixed reviews. However, Cavill's performance was lauded as he would play the role in the film's sequel, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and in the team-up Justice League film. I don't have anything to say then.
The only thing I would say is I think we can all agree that that the Zack Snyder version of Justice League is at least better than the Joss Whedon one.
It's not really saying much, but yeah.
I mean, no, neither of them is a particularly high bar, and there are better ways to do a superhero team up movie.
Oh.
Yeah.
I actually did a rewrite of. I actually made a pitch version on my other channel called All Star Justice League, where I pitch an idea for a Justice League movie. Funny enough, I actually used the basis for that for that rewrite for a comic.
Mm. Oh, hey, Ed Brewer was in chat a bit ago.
Oh yeah. I think I saw it. I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
All
Hi,
right.
Ed. Sorry it took us so long. We were in the middle of stuff.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
All right. Philip Kennedy Johnson, who currently writes action comics for DC Comics, talked at the New York Comic Con about how he viewed Superman. Johnson said his vision of Superman is clear in quotations, while admitting different creators have differing opinions on the versions of the hero. He said his vision aligns closely with Christopher Reeve's portrayal of Superman, but more like hulked out physically and in the context of these big epic scenarios. But I just love that. Yeah, that version of Superman has no ego when he smiles. That his attitude was, "I'm your friend, I'm going to help you." John said he felt like Bill's take on Superman was too conflicted. I mean, yeah, I got nothing really to say there.
Yeah. It's it's worth noting that even though I can sort of see in my head how the kind of begrudging desire to help people is more relatable than the just optimistic I'm going to help because I can approach. It's better for the world are if more people are comic Superman than uh, Zack Snyder's version. Moving on.
Johnson explained that, in his opinion, Man of Steel Superman is too relatable, and that his take on the hero shows him as the best of us always.
Again, I'm stunned, shocked, and annoyed at your implication of the word relatable there, because that implies that you find someone who has a certain level of contempt for people to be more relatable than people who are genuinely just that nice. And while on a practical level, I can see where you're coming from with that, I freely acknowledge that that makes me an asshole. You unironically use the word relatable for the guy who, if left to his own devices, would have killed a school bus full of kids, or at least was conflicted about it when his father yelled at him for it.
Uh-huh. Uh, I don't mean like physically or his act, I mean even that, but just the approach of the Man of Steel film in which he's kind of searching for himself. And you might see him make a mistake, or he gets opportunities to help, and he might not do it right away, or he's conflicted. Like seeing a more relatable Superman. That's not what I'm like. That's not what I like at all. Where it concluded. I want to see. I want a Superman that shows us the way and shows how we're supposed to be. That's best of all.
Okay, that's a decent conclusion, I guess. But then why do you consider that the other version of Superman more relatable then? It's because you deep down are at least somewhat nihilistic. And that's the issue I take with it. No one should relate to the the conflicted quote unquote Superman. And when people like me do, that's a bad sign on us. That is a sign we have some some failings, which make it a very, very good thing indeed that we don't have those kind of powers. Um, or in my case, that I don't have access to whatever grimoire Castlevania's Dracula was using at any given moment. Because that would be my move. Yeah, screw the Superman powers. I would just go the Dracula route. But that's neither here nor there. Point being, to say that a conflicted nihilistic character is more relatable than an optimistic one implies that you think there is something more fundamental or more human in the conflict than in the optimism. And I don't agree with that. I think most people, on balance, because we are a social species, are socially productive. And therefore, it's healthier if people have aspirations and have, loftier principles than if they just go, fuck it, the world is fucked anyway, let it all burn. Um, and again, as much as I personally might find that second option the one I'm more tempted to go with on most days, um, I acknowledge that that makes me a bad person. It doesn't make me normal. Most normal people are actually better and more well-adjusted than me, and I can at least admit that. Whereas you, writer of this, or Mr. Kennedy is his last name?
Johnson.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, you want the aspirational hero, but you still somehow find it to be intellectually honest to call the broken one more relatable. I would advise you sort your shit out philosophically because that is a lot of cognitive dissonance. If you want the optimistic hero, try seeing the best in people more often because you might find if you're willing to give people the benefit of the doubt more often, there's more reason to give people the benefit of the doubt. But if you default to, even though I want um even though I want the optimistic hero, it's unlikely or unreasonable. That basically that's viewing optimism as a childish or naive thing, or a thing that we shouldn't rely. It's okay. It's a little bit like you view the optimistic principled hero as like an impossible fiction along the lines of Santa Claus. And even though, again, I am an asshole, I would disagree with you there. I do not think um, more people on average relate to Clark Kent in the Snyderverse than they do in the comics. I think in general, if most people were given the opportunity to be like Superman, you'd get more people trying to be like the comic version than you would the Zack Snyder version, because I am not a nihilistic prick. I acknowledge that I am a broken piece of person, but that doesn't mean the rest of the universe is broken. Just because I have personal shortcomings and personal failings does not mean those shortcomings and failings are the default setting of the universe. Whereas you, by calling the Snyder one relatable, are implying that the Snyder one is more realistic or more normal than the comic version. But sorry to burst your bubble, or I guess that maybe it's a good thing I'm bursting your bubble, but good people exist. Just because people like you and me are not them doesn't mean there aren't good people in the world. And it certainly isn't a reflection on the way the world works that some people are bitter assholes who need to get their shit together. Thank God. I can acknowledge that my personal failings are my personal failings, and they don't apply to the entire goddamn universe. Moving on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Johnson's criticisms are completely fair, but it's worth noting that his version of Superman Action Comics is the fully fleshed out hero, while Call's Man of Steel was still learning the ropes. Of course, Johnson's take on Superman is going to star the best version of the Kal-El imaginable, as he's been the hero for years in his comic run. Meanwhile, Zack Snyder's Superman in Man of Steel was still learning what it what being the best of us always truly meant.
But
Uh,
see, this is the nihilistic part though. The assumption that he has to learn how to do it instead of just kind of automatically getting it. While there are definitely some people who do need to be smacked around a little bit to learn how to be good people, um, there are also people who, if left to their own devices, will just come to the good conclusion anyway. And in both the case of Mr. Johnson and in the case of Mr. Snyder, the assumption that the default mode is selfishness instead of the default mode being the desire to help is the counterproductive part. The assumption that more people are more self-involved than um, optimistic or altruistic. Moving on.
there's no denying both Johnson and Superman and Henry Cavill's Superman are fairly different, but as Johnson mentioned, every writer's Superman is a little different.
And most of them have no idea how to do it properly. Because they're a bunch of nihilistic pricks. And they view the desire to help people as naive somehow. Next,
Yeah, it was just loading. Sorry.
Yep. So I'm gonna take a drink of tea while we're waiting.
Got it. Alright, so this is the Morbius trailer.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see. Official trailer for Morbius. I think we covered the teaser trailer a while back.
We did.
Okay, I honestly don't remember.
It was like 105 or something on those lines, I think.
Either way. Yeah, I don't really have anything to say, honestly.
Yeah. We're mostly just covering it because it came out like
Last
this
week.
week and it seemed appropriate.
Yeah.
I'm not super excited for this, but I don't hate it either. So it looks better than Venom. I'll give it that. But I don't really have a skin in the game in regards to this character one way or the other. Banana.
No.
You need a doctor?
I am a doctor.
I should have died years ago.
People all over the world have my disease.
Yeah.
It doesn't look bad, like cinematography wise. I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah. I hope they don't focus too much on him being a doctor because that might rip off Doctor Strange just a little bit too much. Especially given the song playing in the background that I declare as a technical foul because now Doctor Strange can't use it later.
You cut out immensely, Dalton.
Damn it. I was saying how I hope they don't focus too much on him being a doctor because that might lead to Doctor Strange comparisons too much, especially given the song playing in the background of the trailer, which is a little bit of a technical foul just because I really wish that Doctor Strange had used that first if a superhero movie was going to use that. And I find it now less likely that it ever will because Morbius used it.
Well, to be fair, the Doom Patrol used it first.
That's true. So maybe Doctor Strange will get to use it at some point, but it's still a little bit of a technical foul because not just because People Are Strange by the Doors would be an excellent song to use in a Doctor Strange trailer, but also because the Doors actually reference Doctor Strange on one of their album covers, if I remember correctly.
Shall we?
Yeah.
Banana.
To find a cure, we have to push the boundaries, take the risks. If you're gonna run, do it now. People are strange.
Nothing.
Yeah. Banana.
Dr. Michael Morbius, you've been missing for 2 months.
When you're a stranger,
Then you were found on a container ship that washed up off Long Island.
faces look ugly. When you're alone.
Only thing I gotta say is like I like this version, like the trailer version of People Are Strange.
Yeah, no, it's a good version. It is. Almost like they should have used it a while ago, Marvel, but ahem. Banana.
I'm not even gonna say let it go because I know you're not, because you're that kind of vindictive little bitch.
Yes. Somebody has to be.
Fair enough. Yeah, banana.
Banana.
What did you do to yourself, Doctor?
I wish I knew. I went from dying to being more alive than ever.
It worked.
Not exactly. I have increased strength and speed. So
I am curious if they're gonna tie this into Spider-Verse like they did with Venom.
You mean Far From Home?
Or yeah, No Way Home. God damn, God damn it! Why didn't they just call it Spider-Verse? They should have just called it Spider-Verse.
We already got something like that. It's a lot better than we're probably gonna get.
I hope you're wrong, but you're probably right. Why is it we're only right when it's bad for us to be right?
The world's an asshole.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes yes.
Yeah.
That's why I want to burn it sometimes.
No.
But I know you would. I know you wouldn't let me.
Yeah. No.
Banana.
the form of got radar. What else can I do?
There are limits. There has to be.
There's something inside of me.
Nothing. I just don't have anything to say. Like,
Yeah, it looks good, but I don't really have anything to add, other
Yeah.
than maybe they'll do what they did in the Venom 2 post-credit scene and it'll tie into No Way Home.
yeah, like if I wanted you guys to see my face, it literally just be like a neutral face. If anyone's ever seen like those pictures.
The Met emoji.
Yeah.
Banana.
1 sec. Yep. All right. Banana.
What's the hunt? And consume blood.
Can you control it?
I don't know.
Half the city wants to kill you.
We haven't had anything this good since that thing in Syria.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Yeah.
Banana.
San Francisco.
The other half wants to control you.
Hey, Dr. Mike. You and I should stay in touch.
I'd do anything to save life. But I don't know what I'm capable of.
You save lives, you don't take them.
I will say I do sort of wish Morbius had his accent, because the character in the comics, I believe, is actually Transylvanian. So I do sort of wish he had his accent, but that might mean nitpicking.
Yeah. I think this does take place in the MCU because we got like Vulture. There was a picture in there that said like graffiti that had Spider-Man and said murderer on it.
So maybe Morbius is the 6th member of the Sinister Six.
And they also mentioned something in San Francisco.
So that would be what
Venom.
Ant-Man and Wasp reference.
No, Venom.
Okay.
Yeah, because they have Venom set in San Francisco, remember?
Which this is interesting on some level then, because it means we'll get to see Doctor Strange playing off of a not vampire in the form of Morbius. So that'll be interesting.
Shall we?
Yep. Banana.
I don't know.
Are you here to heal the world? Or to destroy it?
Still nothing.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting movie, but I have no reason to I don't have a skin in this game. My only background for Morbius is being annoyed that he's a science fire still. But I don't begrudge the movie for that. That's just my issue with the character in the comics.
Anyway. Banana.
Banana.
Who the hell are you, man?
I am Venom. Oh, there's kid. It's Dr. Michael Morbius at your service.
Nothing. I just don't have anything to say because it's not really a character. I don't know. It's just like it's a character that's interesting when he interacts. Like, don't get me wrong, the story could be interesting for the character as an individual, but it's more interesting when he really gets to interact with like other characters. You know.
Mm-hmm. And so if he winds up being a member of the Sinister Six in No Way Home, that'll be interesting, especially when we consider that the Darkhold actually has a recipe for actual vampires. So I imagine Doctor Strange will do a bit of a double take when he realizes Morbius is not technically a vampire in the Marvel sense.
The regular sense, I guess.
Especially if they do what they did for the Eternals post-credit scene and have Blade show up.
Mm. With that, folks. I mean, I don't have anything else to say, honestly. So,
No.
with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avideze, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Fuck off.